It was nearly midnight when David sat alone at his kitchen table, his hands wrapped tightly around a chipped coffee mug. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional cough from his 6-year-old son, Ethan, sleeping in the next room. Bills were scattered across the table like fallen leaves, and the numbers blurred together until they felt like weights pressing down on his chest. David was a single dad, widowed far too young after his wife's sudden illness, and each day felt like a battle between hope and exhaustion. He worked 2 jobs, mechanic by day, grocery stocker by night, yet it never seemed enough. That night, as he sat in the dim light, he had no idea that within 24 hours, his life would change in a way he couldn't have imagined. The next morning, on his way home from his night shift, David noticed a young girl sitting on the curb by the bus stop. She looked out of place, her clothes too thin for the chilly air, her eyes red as if she'd been crying all night. He might have walked past, except Ethan had a habit of pointing out when someone looked sad and saying, "Daddy, you should help them." Those words echoed in his mind, and something made him stop. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The girl flinched, pulling her coat tighter. I don't have anywhere to go." Her name was Lily. 19 years old. Her parents had sold her to pay off their debts. She had managed to escape, but she had no money, no family, and nowhere safe to stay. She looked fragile, yet there was a quiet strength in her voice as if she had been forced to grow up far too quickly. David's instinct told him to be careful. After all, he was barely holding things together himself, but something in Lily's eyes reminded him of his wife's last words, "Promise me you'll always open your heart, no matter how hard life gets." Against his fear, against his logic, David made a decision. He told her, "Come on. You can stay with us tonight. Just until you figure things out." At first, it was awkward. Ethan, wide-eyed and curious, kept asking if Lily was his new babysitter. Lily stayed quiet most of the time, helping around the house as if trying not to be a burden. But slowly, trust began to grow. She helped Ethan with his homework, and he laughed more with her around than David had seen in months. She cooked meals out of scraps in the fridge, turning beans and rice into something that actually tasted good. But the challenges were many. David worried what people would say, a grown man living with a 19-year-old girl. He worried about money, too. Another mouth to feed meant more strain. Lily, meanwhile, carried invisible scars. She woke up from nightmares, crying softly when she thought no one heard. She flinched when someone raised their voice, even slightly. One evening, when David found her sitting alone on the back steps, he finally asked, "What did they do to you, Lily?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she whispered, "They treated me like I was worth less than money. I don't know if I'll ever feel like I belong anywhere." David put a hand on her shoulder and said words he didn't plan but knew were true, "You belong here. Maybe we're broken in different ways, but we can heal together." The months that followed were not easy. There were moments when David wondered if he had made a mistake, when bills piled higher than hope, when he was so tired he could barely stand. But every time he thought of giving up, Lily reminded him why he had chosen compassion. She found part-time work at a local bakery, her first job ever, and proudly handed David her first paycheck to help with groceries. She started taking evening classes, determined to build a life that was hers. She taught Ethan how to tie his shoes, read him bedtime stories, and even showed him how to plant flowers in the tiny patch of dirt by the porch. And in return, David gave her something she had never had before, a family who truly cared. Still, their biggest test came one bitter winter. David's hours were cut at the garage, and the heating bill soared. He felt the crushing weight of failure pressing down again. One night, when he sat at the same kitchen table, head in his hands, Lily placed a small envelope in front of him. Inside was the money she had been quietly saving from her bakery job. "I've been saving this," she said, her voice trembling. "I know it's not much, but we're in this together, right?" David couldn't stop the tears that fell. In that moment, he realized that Lily was no longer just a girl he had helped. She was his miracle, the reason he kept going, the proof that even in brokenness, love could grow. Years later, when Ethan stood tall in his graduation gown, it wasn't just David clapping with pride, it was Lily, his sister in every way that mattered. She had gone on to finish college, working with organizations that helped other young people escape abuse. And when people asked her why she cared so deeply, she would smile and say, "Because once, someone cared enough to take me in when I had nothing. That saved my life." David never forgot the night he stopped for a stranger at a bus stop. He never forgot how close he had come to walking past. And he never stopped believing that miracles sometimes come disguised as the people we least expect.